Dad always used to say, shh, o que fia popo, ai whaalongo ka ninga.
No conspiracy theory, not saying this is dead right, nor am I regurgitating shit from a website.
My uncle's favourite saying was, "Pau te taupa, ki hai puawai, yaku moi moia."
The potential of the power of the people can never be equal. They wish information never was legal.
Bros biz, bros biz, bros biz. Bitches. One. Action.
What's up? Kia ora, tarofa lava. Welcome back to Bros Biz, or welcome to Bros Biz for the first time if you just found us. We've recently moved from an audio only or a SoundCloud catalog to a new YouTube approach. So hopefully we don't look too awkward.
Now you can see how beautiful we are.
Yeah, don't adjust your screens. Unfortunately, the camera adds 30 kilos. I'm Kent, one of the co-creators, and I'm with the two bros, Ray Alasana and Nick Titana. How are you fellas doing today?
You got a great face for radio, mate. You should have probably stayed there.
Are you going to try and tell a joke too, or are you just...
No, I'm great. Thank you very much, Kent.
Next time he tells a joke, can you laugh? Just make him feel a bit better. So look, we've been doing this podcast for about a year. We've got about 50 odd episodes up on SoundCloud. Check us out, Bros Business Podcast. You can also get us on iTunes. This is really early in the piece for our YouTube approach. So just to give a bit of background on what we try to do. We are three middle-aged men, all born in New Zealand, all of different cultural backgrounds. I'm Pākehā, Pārangi, Anglo-Saxon, white, however you want to do it.
Scottish.
Nick is from a Māori or an Indigenous New Zealand background.
Actually, sorry.
Sorry.
I'm from a mixed heritage.
Okay, well, there you go.
Thank you.
Say it.
Kia ora, Mum.
We'll keep your lineage.
My dad's of Māori descent, and my mum is from mixed European background.
And I am Samoan. Born in New Zealand, raised in Australia, Samoan heritage and ancestry.
Confused.
He's confused. So I guess the driver for the podcast is to open up discussion. So that, middle-aged men often avoid difficult discussions or opening up discussions, particularly around things like mental health and well-being in general, parenting issues, relationship issues. So we're not for 1 minute claiming that we're subject matter experts. We're really just trying to demonstrate that these discussions can happen with your bros or with your inner circle, and hoping that this sort of triggers some discussions at home, whether that be with your mates or with your significant other or anyone else you feel that you need to open up to. Often we take a bit of a light-hearted look at a situation, so there's no intent to offend, but that's a bit of a disclaimer just to say that some offence may be caused. And the topic we're about to touch on right now is probably no different. So, look, I think we just sort of highlighted before around though we are all on paper New Zealanders, we all do share,
And Australians?
and we are actually dual citizens. We are all dual citizens. Sorry, Mum. But yeah, we are all from different cultural backgrounds, and we've also been fortunate enough through work here in Australia to be able to engage with a whole lot of different cultures once we've been here as well. So probably would like to open up a bit of a discussion first around our own experience, and that's probably about the migrant experience, because we all migrated at different ages of our life, and so how that experience has affected us, and then also what that interaction has done, broader than that as well. Does anyone want to kick off?
So I migrated here 17 years ago, and if you were going to move to any other country from New Zealand, probably Australia is the closest one that you could find in the world. So we speak the same language, a variety of the same language, kind of similar makeup, and I really didn't have too much problem integrating into Australian society. I went from a government job in New Zealand to a government job here. Didn't have any problem with the kids integrating into local schools, or the lifestyle in general.
Okay, I'll come back to that in a minute because I do have a question about it. Yeah. But Ray was a lot younger when he came.
Yeah, so my experience would have been different. So I came here when I was 8. So I went to primary school in New Zealand, moved over. I lived in Samoa for a couple of years, then came to Australia. So, yes, my experience was different because when we first got here, we were the minority. So, we're not the majority now, but there's a lot more Samoans in the community now, especially in this area.
Yep.
So, if you're
Paddington.
Yeah, Paddington. Yeah. So if you're coming over from New Zealand now or from Samoa, at least you can come into a community where there's already a social network of Samoans that you can assimilate with, But so when we first got here, there was no one, so it would have been particularly hard for my parents.
Yeah.
Yeah. So because English is their second language, but they spoke it well enough to deal with things that find accommodation, get work, and that sort of stuff. But
So you mentioned something there that I'll share my experience in a minute. It's not anything flash, but you did mention something there though that probably triggered a question for me. So all of us came from countries where we were migrants. We weren't refugees, right? So there were choices. Our parents, in your case, your
Yep.
parents, or me and Nick, we migrated as adults. We made choices. So you said Samoans migrating here and finding a community to assimilate with or to connect with.
yep.
Does that mean there's not really a desire to connect with the country in which they're migrating to?
No, there definitely is, but I guess if you've grown up a certain way, so I'm talking about my parents here.
Okay.
English, when I grew up, I went to an English school, so it's not a foreign language to me. But not so much them as well. So if they had no English at all, it's probably a lot easier for them to come into a community where there are Samoan-speaking people that can assist them
Yep.
Yeah.
and slowly integrate into the community.
Yeah, Ray.
Yeah.
And I would probably turn that question back on you because all your friends are Kiwis. The
Most.
majority of your friends.
I would say. I'd say 90.
You married a New Zealand-born girl.
Yep. I did.
So, did you have any desire to integrate into the society that you moved to?
Yeah, exactly, mate.
I think that's a great call. So,
Does any Australian like you?
Australians love me, mate. Australians love me because
Yeah.
I'm white. It's you two that are. It's you two that are in fucking trouble.
You're a cheeky prick, just like him.
Right. So look, I was 22. I was so Nick migrated with married with kids, and Ray came as a kid himself. I was 22 and single when I came here, so it was a bit of a different. I sort of came to visit a mate who had been here a year, and I just never went back. So yeah, look, and I think the truth is that the majority of the people closest to me are also either New Zealand born or New Zealand raised, and that. Some of that has been by design, I guess. So even though Nick said, and I probably wanted to touch on this before, when you said there wasn't a lot of difference culturally or linguistically when you got here, but obviously you did mention that being a half caste or of mixed heritage, you would have had a connection to your Māori culture in New Zealand. Do you not feel there was any change when you got here?
Oh, with that, that's yeah, obviously. But I guess I was talking about broader society.
Okay.
Yeah, so obviously there's a lot of Māori people here, but not a lot of actually there are a few of my relations here too. But I guess being away from that part of my life. That was a big change, I guess.
What about the flow on for the kids? Do you reckon that's had a?
That's probably had a big effect in that area for them, because it's not something that it's not around us 24/7.
Yeah.
So they're living the life that they've got to live in the place that they live,
Which is Australia.
Sure.
I think it's so much easier for kids nowadays. So I think my kids will integrate or a lot easier than we did. So I remember going to school here, and there were probably 2 other islanders at my school, and so you're a minority. In a perfect world, everyone treats you the same, but it doesn't always. Yeah, that's not the truth. So, especially when you go to school in Ipswich, and there's no other islanders, it's kind of
Toowong.
Oh yeah, Toowong. Sorry.
Yeah.
That private school.
I think that what you touched on is and what you touched on too, and I probably never called myself on it because you around migrants sort of gravitating towards groups of their own when they get here. Like you think that there's large clusters of Vietnamese populations here, where large groups of Vietnamese people tend to stay in the same place, go to shops where people speak Vietnamese, and the same in Melbourne and Sydney with Greeks and Italians.
Yep.
So some of that's a sort of a double-edged sword. Some of that is around, like you've said, they've come here, they don't understand the language, and they go where they can get the service or where they can communicate effectively. But I also think that there's the second phenomenon. You mentioned Pauline Hanson before, but this Take Back Australia sort of campaign that is actually not a new phenomenon. Like Australia probably has quite a long history of tension, racial tension, but it's hard to want to integrate to a society that doesn't want to accept you as well. So there are two sides of that.
So who's trying to take back Australia? The Indigenous Australians?
Oh no, the white people. The only people that matter. The only people that matter. Remember,
the people that took Australia away from the first Australians.
No. There was no people here before Captain Cook arrived. Just like in America, right? There were no people here. Is it called Terra Nullius? They just grabbed abandoned land, and all of a sudden, these savage brown people just popped up out of nowhere.
Hey, don't worry.
Elaborate. Keep going.
I'll be posting up his address and phone number up here in the video.
But I mean, I guess that is the hypocrisy of the Take Back Australia campaign. Like it's a whole bunch of white people.
Pauline Hanson saying, "Let's take our land."
Let's take back our stolen land. Yeah. So what about
So that's a common thing though. Like people gravitate to what they know and they're comfortable with what they know. So, if you move to a place where you're a newcomer or a stranger, then you're going to gravitate towards the people that you're more comfortable with, I guess, initially, until you start to sort of, put your toe out into the general population.
I think I think
that isolation thing too that you.
Oh no, you go.
Well, I actually hadn't finished fucking Terra Nullius.
The white man goes first. That's the law of the. I didn't make the laws. That's just the laws.
Put your hand up when you want to say something.
White privilege does not exist in this studio, mate. If it's anything, it's brown privilege. All right, get it straight. Anyway, what I was saying is that.
What were you saying?
What were you saying?
Fucking hell. When you were talking about the society not being welcoming, I didn't find it. So you might get the outliers like your Pauline Hanson and your Take Back Australias saying, we grew here, you flew here, all that sort of shit.
Love it or leave it.
Love it or leave it, Australia. Love it or leave it.
So,
but I didn't feel a lot of that.
But you probably came later on.
Yes.
So
Ray. The microphone is something you have to talk
Ray,
into, mate.
Put it on your chin like you do for other things, all right?
You guys are used to straight on stuff. I'm not used to having something.
If the microphone's here, you got to be here.
I'm not having. I'm not used to having something like right in front of me like that. Like you guys are.
Not without two big balls hanging underneath.
Fa'amanga. Open up. That's what.
Anyway, dickhead.
So no.
Yeah.
Sorry, you go.
So, but the thing is, when you came over, you weren't the minority. So, did you have a network of friends already here? People were used to seeing brown guys walking
Aussie
around.
heritage, mate. That's why.
Fair dinkum.
I belong.
You what?
True blue.
Well, are you? How far back is your Aussie heritage?
So my 6 times removed great-grandfather
Right.
came to Australia in 1857, opened the first school in Williamstown in Melbourne.
Oh, fuck, you could play for the Wallabies.
You can't. No.
Hey, true blue.
So, look, I probably challenge a little bit of that. So I didn't feel...
Because you're white and you look like every other Australian.
So I didn't feel that, but I can tell you for sure, working for the federal government here for 10 years and getting to engage with a lot of what they would call fair.
Fuck me.
No thanks.
Get it right, get it.
Hold on, what are you doing? Mate,
He's going to keep flying around.
Get that mouse right.
all right.
Fuck you, have big rats in your house?
You're gonna have to. How about we wait?
No, we'll play that. Let's go.
It's a lot easier anyway. Right, okay, so I'm gonna say that I think there's a lot of undercover racism here that's not put out. I'll give you an example. There was one of the questions that we used to have to ask everyone in this particular federal government that we department that we worked for that will remain nameless is, do you identify as Indigenous Australian? And I can't even count the amount of times white Australians would say, "No, I'm Australian, mate." And I'd have to say, "Yes, so are they." I'm asking you what kind of Australian you are, And so the fact is that I think that I'm not going to for 1 minute say that there were people that weren't accepting of you being brown. I'm just saying I'm not sure they'd say it to your face.
No, see, I don't think it was a question of accepting me for being brown or not. It's just a question of accepting me for being me.
Oh shit.
Oh, here we go.
We find
Straight
it hard to fucking accept you.
Straight down the barrel.
I've known you for 17 years and I find it hard to fucking accept you. All right, but the migrant experience is a very funny experience. I also have been very lucky enough for the same federal government department, got the opportunity to work with other migrant communities, non-English speaking migrant communities. And I'm from a place called Dunedin. It's small.
Backwards.
I'm going to use the term city in the bottom of the South Island of New Zealand, but it is really conservative, right? And there's not a lot of cultural diversity. And so I think that the working in multicultural services really helped open my eyes up to other ways of doing, like just cultural norms that I just thought were I was really uncomfortable with at the time because that's not how it was programmed. And I think that, I don't really know where I'm going with it.
Give an example.
So look.
So you're just ignorant before, but
So I was ignorant in the true definition of ignorant. Like didn't
you just had no idea. Yeah.
Had a lack of understanding.
So think Dunedin and think the South and the deep South in the US, and think
Tasmania.
Think of a guy named Cletus, and then that's how he came across.
So I think we at one point we were managing a whole lot of refugees migrating from the Horn of Africa. So we're talking Sudan, Eritrea, even Burundi,
Rwanda.
Yeah. And so just understanding that people can grow up speaking 5 different languages from birth is something that was completely foreign to me. I thought 2 was great.
Yeah.
But 2 is fucking nothing for these people, And then even how we're programmed to deal with these people. So what happens is these refugees come here. Most have never set foot in a classroom in their own country. They might not read and write any language, but they speak 5. And then here in Australia, we try and teach them like people in Australia learn. So we put adults that have never been in a classroom and try and teach them the ABCs. And then when we can't teach them, we say, oh, fuck, they can't learn. But they already speak 5 languages. Of course they can learn. Yeah. We're just not doing it in a way that's actually useful to them. And I think that's our cultural programming. We don't really think that's opened my eyes to other ways of doing things, I guess is what I'm saying.
Or when people criticise them for not being able to speak English.
Yeah,
like, they can't even speak
French,
English, but they speak 5 other languages.
Kirawanda.
I think the main thing that opened my eyes up to working with refugees is the survival, like the experiences that they've had and what they've survived. Like I'm like, shit, man, I'd be curled up in a ball in the fetal position.
Yeah, and we all judge it based on our own experience, though, don't we?
Yeah,
and that's what happened. Why fucking. So that Take Back Australia campaign, the We Grew Here, You Flew Here, talks about don't come here if you can't speak the language and you don't understand the culture. I'm going to say there's nothing more Australian than coming here and not speaking the language and not understanding the culture, because that's how Australia was fucking founded, right? A whole lot of people didn't speak any Indigenous language, didn't understand any Indigenous culture. Apparently no one was here beforehand, and they discovered a fucking piece of dirt that people already lived on.
Your forefathers, man.
The great people. Fucking took you people out of the darkness, savage motherfuckers.
Give him another half a beer.
Half a
Yeah.
beer,
And
another
let him
half
Get
a beer,
ready
it's
for
all
the
over.
fucking hate mail, the
Half
death
a
threats.
beer.
Let him fucking hang himself.
He'll be cleanly shaven tomorrow.
I'll be- that's
Go
right.
bald, go bald, bro.
I'm going bald, motherfucker. Okay, you said that like I had a fucking choice. Any other insights to multiculturalism, Ray? What's it like?
Sir.
What's it like being a plastic Samoan?
Fucking 2 beers
two
in,
beer,
and
no,
now
just-
you're starting to further fucking.
Yeah, culture is a motherfucker.
I don't know how to.
So I don't know, man. So if I think about it, we're made up of a lot of different things, right? So our cultural background, which might be, one predominant culture, or you might come from a place where you've been influenced by lots of different cultures, like you were saying, and people speaking different languages, and people having different educational levels, people living in different parts of a city or a country. Those all sort of all those different. It's like those what are they called, Venn diagrams, all those circles. So you say I'm Māori here, I'm Pākehā here. I was educated to this level. I've worked in this, but they all sort of overlap. And that's me. You know what I mean? I'm not one thing.
Oh, you are. You're a fucking wanker. You're a 100% wanker.
All right, you ignorant,
right now.
All right, you ignorant motherfucker. Well, I'm trying to
No,
start
no,
a
I get it.
conversation.
Yeah,
What do you
yeah.
think?
No.
You're
I
one
like that.
thing. You're a Dunedinite.
No, I'm not.
Well,
Ignorant.
Nick, do you-
Oh, I am ignorant. I am ignorant.
how do you think it's important to keep your culture alive? Like, because you're abroad, you're not in New Zealand, you're not where your culture's
Look, I think
practiced.
there's parts of culture that don't deserve to be kept alive. So if you live in the Horn of Africa in a tribe where they practice female genital mutilation, I don't believe that part of that culture
Continue.
deserves to stay alive, right? If you live in a commune where there's a cult religious leader and children are abused, I don't believe that part of that culture deserves to stay alive. So I think, with culture, you take the good parts out of it that you want for your life and you integrate it.
Yeah, but do you think it's important to do so? Do you do it?
Look, I don't know, to be honest.
'Cause
That's probably
for
as
me-
close as I could answer it.
Yeah, because I think it's important to take.
So I think there are parts of... So when you say my culture, I'm not thinking one thing. I'm thinking a whole lot of other things that make up my experience in the way that I grew up.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So as I get older, I leave some of those things behind that I don't necessarily agree with or that I don't think are helping me. And I take on other things from other cultures, potentially. And that's how I live my life.
What about you?
Yeah, well, I only ask because it's something that I probably struggle with. So I think it's important to try and keep your culture alive, but I find it extremely difficult to pass some of those lessons on to my kids, especially because you're surrounded by a culture that's not, what it is theirs because they're born here.
Yeah, well,
but
that's the thing. So some of those things that you talk about as your culture apply in a different place and a different time. You know what I mean? They were developed by people who needed them to live their life the way they wanted to live it in a different place and a different time. So our kids are in such a changing world.
I also just want to point out that there's two fundamental differences. So one is that when he's talked to you about your culture, he's applying his... So his parents both come from the same culture. Your parents don't.
Yeah.
So you're saying, for me, culture means many things, and for him, it means one thing because his parents are practicing the same language.
A version
of this.
culture.
Yeah. That's right. And so look, and so I'm not trying to mediate. I'm just trying to put that on the table for the people watching us fucking argue.
we're not arguing.
I get you. But I just want to put that on the table that's really what it's about. That both of your parents are born and raised in Samoa. Your father's Māori, your mother's Pākehā.
Both my mum and dad were
Born and raised in New Zealand, though. Yeah, for sure. And I think so. I'm in a mixed relationship as far as ethnicity goes, but not country of birth. So me and my wife both born in New Zealand. My wife, like yourself, both her parents are born in Samoa. We do.
Condolences, Rosie.
Yeah, she hit the jackpot. You hit the jackpot. but
That's a jackpot you
But
never
actually,
want to hit.
so this is where I want to talk about culture a bit more, because there are many elements of culture, right? And sometimes we confuse just the language we speak and the food we eat as everything that's culture, but it's not. It's your norms, what you think is right and wrong, how you marry, how you what you do at a funeral, how you celebrate a birth. All of these customs make up to it too. So in our house, because we want our kids to have a good relationship with Rosie's, with my wife's mum, we do speak the language, but that doesn't mean we practice culture. It's actually two different things. So I would say we don't pass a lot of cultural practice on to our kids, but we do try and impart some of the language so they can communicate with their grandma effectively.
It's still part of the culture, though.
So it's part
So
of
it's
it.
not imparting all the culture, but
No.
there's still an element of the culture there.
Yeah. So I would say at a funeral or at a wedding, my kids would still be plastic as they wouldn't really understand what to do, how to behave.
Yeah.
But they'd understand a lot of the words that are being, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the communication.
But it's something they can learn, though. So and that's so for instance, me. So I grew up in New Zealand and Australia. So I would go to school. No one speaks Samoan. Grew up, working in Australia. So don't have too much experience living in Samoa, being in that culture 24/7.
Yeah.
But when I come home, in the comfort of our home, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, that culture's practiced there because your parents are speaking it,
So they're speaking the language,
speaking the language,
preparing the food.
preparing the food. They're instilling Samoan principles. They're, we're singing Samoan hymns. We're going to Samoan churches. So that's what I mean by, do you practice the culture? Because you can lose that culture, and I've lost a lot of it. So I speak Samoan, but not as fluently as a lot of my friends. And it's such a rich there's some rich sort of traditions that I don't understand.
Or adhere to.
There's a there's another sort of language. There's a chief language that I don't understand, but there are elements of the culture that I try and keep alive. But it's extremely hard for me to pass those on to my kids because there's so many other influences.
As well as a separated father, you only get
Yeah,
so much
yeah,
access
and that's
to
what I
them,
mean.
and their mother doesn't
Yeah,
practice the same culture.
And that's
so there's a
and
whole
that's
lot of
one
other-
of those
yeah.
influences.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
And they're living in Brisbane in 2017.
yeah,
You
exactly.
know what
Yeah,
I mean? So that's its own culture.
Yeah.
And they're living as part of a youth culture,
Yeah.
as part of their school and their friends. That's another part of their culture. So it's really, to me, it's it's important, but it's not that important, right? So as long as they grow up and they're good kids, they've got a social conscience, they're respectful, all these things are more important to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
I guess that's different between people because
Yeah.
for me, like I went and did a course recently about the Samoan culture, so it's obviously something that's important to me. So I don't know what it is. Like I feel like, and many other Samoans that were doing the culture very similar to me, born in New Zealand, born in Australia, that just wanted to get back and learn more about their parents.
You feel like there was
Heritage.
something missing in your life.
Yeah. I guess so. Yeah. So and maybe it's just the different values that we might have because obviously it's something that you're.
No. So I never felt that because I feel I already have that.
Okay. Yeah.
So it was never a gap with me.
Yep.
So I don't feel like I'm missing that sort of thing. But then, you ask about my kids. Well, they might not feel that that's a gap for them either because,
Yep.
They don't know what they're missing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Fair enough.
I think there's a couple. So me and you will look at the world very differently with that. So
Fuck. Thank God.
well, so what I'm saying is that I love.
Yourself.
Voodoo.
Well, I love myself. There's
And
no
penis.
there's nothing better than myself. But But there's a love and a pride I have in my country, the country I'm born and raised,
Yep.
that I hope my children share. Not in for my country, like they love
But for their own
country.
country,
Yeah.
yep.
Whereas you have a love for your parents' country, probably over and above the country you were born.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that so my wife probably feels similar to
Probably
you.
similar, yeah.
Yep. So
And I can explain why.
So she tries to instill a lot of, well, not instill, but she really does try and drive that home for the kids a bit. But I try and have a bit more of a balanced approach, because what I'm saying to my kids is, be proud of where you're from. Always
Yeah.
respect your heritage.
Yep.
Be proud that you've got New Zealand heritage, you've got Samoan heritage, you've got Scottish heritage. Don't deny that, but own who you are. Be proud of who you are.
Yeah.
Because I feel that.
But why be
The-
proud of something
See-
that you had no part in?
Yeah,
No,
but see, that's the thing.
What do you
So,
mean? Yeah.
I mean, you were born there. You don't have a choice where you're born.
yeah, but see, that's
be
the
proud
thing.
of something that you done or you achieved on your own
Well,
mat.
well, actually, then, if that's the case, though, then
Hang on, I was speaking.
How did this-
So so you're proud of New Zealand because that's where you were born.
and raised,
Right, and
I went to
raised.
school,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
did everything. Yeah,
See, for me, it's different, and for a lot of other islanders, it's different as well. Like I mentioned before, you're born somewhere, but you come home and you're living in that culture. The other thing is, born in New Zealand, only lived there for a little while.
Yeah.
Lived most of my life in Australia. The only constant is
Samoa.
the home.
Yeah.
Speaking Samoan,
Yeah.
surrounded by Samoan relatives and stuff. So that's why. So some people are more proud of their heritage and their ancestry, not because they. I'm proud that I'm a New Zealand-born Samoan and I was raised in Australia. I'm happy for the opportunity.
Sure.
But I'm very proud of my ancestry and my heritage, and I know a lot of Samoans that are the same. So you got The Rock that
But
probably never stepped foot in Samoa, Mark Hunt, Tim Cahill,
So
the list goes on
So-
of people
so-
that were born abroad but have ties to the country through ancestry, heritage, practices,
sure. So
cultural beliefs,
but
and
the reasoning you gave is different for some of those other people, because
Yeah.
some of them are actually. So Tim Cahill was born and raised in Australia. He
Yeah.
didn't jump around and spend a couple of years here, a couple of years there, a couple.
but
of
he
years
still
there.
but he still identifies and is proud of that heritage,
I'm
and
not
there's got
saying
to
that
be
you
a
should be.
reason. And the thing is, so you know many Samoans
Yep.
that identify as Samoan but were born in New Zealand.
Yeah.
So it's probably something that you just don't understand, because can you name any one of those guys that would deny their Samoan heritage or are not proud of it?
So, no, I don't know anyone that would. So I'm not saying that you should do. So
Yeah.
I know a few that would say they're New Zealander
Yep.
and then say they're Samoan, and I
Yep.
know a lot that would say they're Samoan and not mention New Zealand at all.
Okay.
Right.
Yep.
So that's not. So either way is not denying your culture. And I
Yeah.
guess what I'm saying for me is that I want my children to be proud of who they are.
Yeah.
Respect and you're saying, well, why should they be proud of something they have no control over? But if that's the case,
I'm just doing a George Carlin bit, actually. He's got a whole bit about that. It's fucking hilarious. But look it up on YouTube, guys.
but then if that's the case though, then you got to push that one step further. So my kids as minors don't have a choice in where they live or where they're born, right?
Yeah.
That's a choice that the parents make. But then if you're going to make that argument, then you start going down the Pauline Hanson art. So now you're an adult. You can make the choice. So if you feel Samoan, why are you not paying taxes in Samoa, voting in Samoa? Why are you not making a difference in Samoa? What
Yeah, but-
that's only to do with that. So at some point you get to make that choice.
Well, you
Yeah.
can't actually agree with anything that Pauline Hanson says.
I don't agree with anything
Yeah.
like that. What I'm saying is that if your argument is don't, like, the kids have no choice in where they're born.
No, I'm saying be proud of the things that you've achieved.
Oh, okay. Greatness. I've achieved greatness.
Off your own back, you know what I mean?
Wow. Just my race.
So being born and raised in Dunedin is not something that you've achieved off your own back.
But it makes you
And
great
nothing
by
you should be
default.
proud of
It
either.
just makes you great by default, really. I think what this discussion highlights is the complexity of culture, right?
That's all right.
Well, it's
all-
not the same thing for
It's
every
not the same
person.
thing for every person. That's right. And I think the other thing about it is also, I hope for those out there that have stuck with us for the last half hour,
There's no one, mate.
there's no one that's got to this
If
point.
we could see on the other side of that screen, there's fucking nobody
There's
there.
no one there.
Anyway.
if you are the dominant culture in a country, also understanding the challenges that migrants to your country are going through. So I'm hoping that this can actually raise some discussion around tolerance, for want of a better term.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess if I take my stance on it a bit further, it's more about treating people as individuals. And if you meet someone down the road, like, hopefully you're going to interact with them as an individual, right? If you can get past all this stereotyping and bias that we all have, and say, oh shit, it's a light skinned guy with dreadlocks, or it's a black guy, he must be this, he must be that, or it's a Samoan guy, he is definitely this, or he's definitely that.
Lock your doors. Lock your doors.
If you can get past all that
if it's a Māori guy dating his cousin.
If you can get past all that unconscious bias and just deal with people as individuals, I think that's the way forward, man.
Any closing words? No. Ray, Whalerei Alasana?
Samoans.
Samoan to the bone, eh, Ray?
Just a little bone. So look, guys. Thanks for sitting through that. Look, we're really keen on your thoughts on culture, or particularly cross-cultural connections. Not in the way that not that does not mean type in biracial into your Pornhub search. That really mean don't look like you don't know what I'm talking about, right? But just around your approaches or your thoughts, you can email us to brosbusiness@outlook.com. You can make comments on our Facebook page, which by searching the Bros Biz podcast in Facebook. We have a Twitter account. It's @brosbiz, BROSBIZZ, or make comment on the YouTube page.
Yeah.
Feel free to abuse Kent.
Oofa.
Fuck! I caught myself doing the fucking
the rapist look.
the fucking rapist look.
Doing what we call the Ray.
Fuck!
The
I'm just
rapist.
like,
You go, fuck it.
then I'm like, oh fuck! Are you guys looking at the camera? Yeah, I know. Fuck, you're doing it heaps, man. You did that heaps, Nick.
It's
I
like
was
there's
like,
a mirror there.
what the fuck?
That's fucking marvelous.